Hello, Paul. How are you?
Hi, Jacquelyn. How are you? Hope you had a great weekend.
I did. It felt really long for some reason this weekend. I think we went down to Boston on Friday night. And I think when you do something big on Friday night, it extends the feeling of the weekend. You know, you get like 3 days rather than 2. So it was fun.
Sweep.
Yes. I was talking to Sarah about sweep recently, and she was like, what exactly does that mean? And I was having a hard time defining it in like English terms. Like it makes sense to me, but yeah.
Yeah. Very important term.
It is for our publication. Our cover stories have to have sweep. They have to.
They have to.
When I was sort of thinking about the podcast, I really did want to bring up a very traditional small talk conversation, which is fall starting, autumn starting. Are you in on that? Are you plugged in on that at all, Paul? It's a very like millennial woman thing too, I think, as well. Like all the stuff at Trader Joe's, all of the maple flavored products, you know?
We don't have that much in DC.
Oh yeah, it's a little further south. Yeah.
If I stayed in Vermont, which would have been wise, I would have known all about autumn. But here it's just, you know, some trees are losing some leaves, and that's about it. Not much.
Yeah. Well, I'm fully breaking out the cozy sweater, so I'm really excited about it. I'm gonna do some cozy gaming. I got a whole thing. I'm really excited about it. So I was wondering if you are too, but you're gonna have to get to Vermont at some point. So
Well, I mean, it does get to sweater weather here too.
Yeah, but still the leaves. Do you ever do Vermont in the fall? I should know this.
No, for some reason I hardly ever.
That's crazy.
It's busy here. It gets very busy, and it's just it's a big to do to get out there in the fall. I'm not sure I've been very often at all. Every now and then.
I mean, it makes sense. It is busy here at this time, but like, gosh, foliage season. Whew.
It's very, very beautiful. I think I've seen it.
Yeah.
Usually the only times I've been there, it was really the beginning of the stick season. So I've missed every time.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
It's fine. I'm not.
It's fine.
I mean, you can't ski yet. So
yeah. I mean, for what you want out of Vermont, it does make sense to go in the winter.
Biking, no skiing.
Yeah.
You can go hiking in the which is fine. Great, fabulous. I love that.
Yeah.
But no mushrooms.
Yeah. Remind me later. I would like to circle back on our mushroom conversation because I'm curious, but we don't need to belabor the point with our listeners.
We should have a private conversation about mushrooms. People often do.
Yeah, no. It's all PG though, I swear. Yes. All right. So I will, before we go further down that rabbit hole, I will take
initials, by the way.
Yeah. Silly that's never come up. That's funny. I will take us through last week's headlines. Our cover story was focused on the new episode of The Directors, which is a special segment of the Cancer Letter podcast. You can check that out on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you get your podcast, YouTube. In the podcast and the story, Ben Hope Park, director of Vanderbilt Ingram Cancer Center, and Suresh Ramalingam, executive director of Winship Cancer Institute of Emory University, had a really frank and engaging discussion among themselves about how this year's federal policy changes are affecting their cancer centers. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the podcast. We'll get into a little bit more depth. We had a guest editorial by Zev Ranai about how the trajectory of cancer research has been toward more and more complexity over the last 50 or so years, and how we have to continue discoveries like that in order to continue improving the lives of people with cancer. It was a really cool story. It was like a call and response type story, question and answer story. Pretty short, so definitely worth taking a look because it's not what we normally publish. It was fun. We had 3 obituaries last week. They were somewhat left over from August, but we had them all in this week's issue. So it was a pretty heavy issue in that way. The 3 people were Nobel laureate David Baltimore, who discovered that tumor viruses could make DNA from their RNA genome. That's the discovery he won the Nobel for. The second person was Harvey Golomb, past chair of UChicago's Department of Medicine. And the third was Bonnie Adario, who was a lung cancer survivor and staunch advocate. We also wrote about the National Cancer Advisory Board approving 5 reissue concepts. We always write about concepts. It's usually, not a big deal, sort of just a reporting on the situation for people who care in our field. But last week's was a little bit more interesting because it was the first time that the National Cancer Advisory Board approved these reissue concepts. It was 5 reissue concepts. And it was the first time they stepped up for the now disbanded Board of Scientific Advisors. And then in cancer policy, we had some follow-up stories about HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. After his appearance before the Senate Finance Committee last week. And we also had a story about Vinay Prasad, a follow-up story about Vinay Prasad, who has now regained his role as Chief Medical and Scientific Officer at FDA. So yeah, that's sort of our issue last week. We can talk kind of briefly about the directors in more detail. I thought it was really interesting. This is now, it's not our first directors anymore. We are really in the swing of things with having these, really influential leaders in oncology speak really openly and frankly and with each other about what's happening in oncology right now. And for me, when I was reading it, what stuck out was the fact that they were giving us like real specifics on how the federal, which like I said already, but how the federal policy changes have impacted their cancer centers. It really felt like a glimpse behind the curtain for me, at least. I know, Paul, you're talking with cancer center directors all the time, but for me, it was really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of the directors was to document what's happening and start as it starts to happen. So we do have a really running tally, not only of the numbers, which are not always clear in the beginning, as an impact, as kind of a psychological impact, the impact on the ethos of the field. The objective is to show the impact, to trace it step by step, and to have the directors talking really peer to peer with me kind of asking questions and prompting and directing the conversation, but no more than that, and everybody listening. So there's this kind of a community leaders talking to the community, and the objective was to make sure that the community, meaning all the people involved in cancer research, the community is not beheaded. That we recognize that there are 73 leaders in this field, and it's actually more than that. And to have everybody hear from everybody else. That's kind of the whole longitudinal reason for having the directors as a podcast. The objective is to get the directors to speak to each other, and in this case, it really did happen. It was Suresh Ramalingam and Ben Ho Park, and they had a chat with me, kind of throwing in questions here and there. But I was pressing on what are the specific harms that they have experienced, and they were answering those questions. And then the way I think Bev Ginsburg summarized it for us as a discussant was really the reason having a discussant is so helpful is, we've been doing this for a long time, many of us. She has, I have, and we've never seen anything like this. This is unprecedented. This is a war on cancer. And it's the positions are still holding. Let's hope they hold forever.
Yes, absolutely. And talking about the war on cancer, I'll tee you up for that, Paul.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's a story in the New York Times, Magazine. I can hold it up, or we can check. Yeah. The war on cancer. Canceled. Is it canceled? It's interesting if it is. It's really an incredible way of putting it. It also has, I love the graphics because, it has a kind of it's in dialogue with the famous, ubiquitous logo of MD Anderson.
Yep. Similar
which
colors.
is Making Cancer History. Well,
Yeah.
making war on cancer history is what this is, what the argument is here. With us today, we have Jonathan Mahler, whose excellent story appeared on the cover of the New York Times Magazine. And it's a story really is, the title is shocking. The War on Cancer canceled, and deliberately shocking and appropriately shocking, I might add. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us on the Cancer Letter podcast. And it's really wonderful to see the Times give this so much attention and to tell the story in long form the way you just did is very helpful. So let's talk about what you found. What did you find?
Well, I found what really kind of appears to be a sort of a systematic dismantling of this system. Or at the very least, a kind of a deliberate defunding of it, which I think is tantamount to a dismantling of it. Some of it is already underway. Some of it has already happened. Some of it, I think, is still a little bit TBD, but the administration has made its intentions clear. So, I'm talking there about the attempt to cut indirect cost rates, and maybe equally important, the president's proposed budget, which is gonna would if enacted, if adopted, would be a huge cut to cancer research. So we have already the kind of freezing, suspension, and cancellation of a lot of cancer related grants, plus these kind of two looming issues with the indirect cost cut and the budget. So all of this, adds up to a pretty worrying scenario.
Jonathan, when we talked early on, you were trying to figure out how to tell the story, and you ended up telling the story. I was actually pushing for a patient because I think it's important to see patient voices. Sure. And you actually do mention the patient, your mother, but you did tell the story through a researcher, and maybe we should focus on her a bit.
Yeah. What I was trying to do ultimately was give people a kind of a 360-degree view of the whole ecosystem. So what I wanted to do was, give you a close kind of look at a researcher, at an institution, a research institution, in this case, UMass, and I wanted to take people inside the government, inside the NIH and the NCI. And I did, as you say, want to give people a look at a patient. As it happens, I ended up using my mom, as opposed to kind of a current patient. So the way I kind of tried to structure the story was, to start with the researcher. And we can talk about her a bit more if you want later. And then to kind of pull back and give people a kind of a bigger picture view of what was going on with the Trump administration and cancer research and biomedical research more broadly. Then I wanted to take people kind of up a notch from the researcher to the institution. Then I tried to kind of pull back again and tell people a little bit more about the history of the war on cancer and kind of the arc of the war on cancer. And then finally, I wanted to sort of take people into the government, into the NCI, into the NIH, and kind of show them how these cuts have been playing out inside the government. And then finally kind of take this to the most human level to the story of my mom. So that was the structure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was an excellent structure. Totally worked.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Never easy structuring these 7,000 word stories, let me tell you.
It's harder to structure a 7,000 word story than the 75,000 word story, right?
I think it's not just, you can't just go start to finish. You have to kind of jump around.
Yeah. Jacquelyn, do you have a
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to talk to you about this. I have a lot of sort of questions. I think the main thing for me is, we've covered everything that's in your story. We've covered, as it's been happening. I feel very immersed in this story, and it was really cool to read it from start to finish, like how you had it. But the piece that I guess as a young journalist that I have been hesitant to comment on. And, obviously I think it's hard to find people in the field to comment on as well, is the fact that this is a dismantling, that it's not a shift in priorities, that, it is that as well. But the one quote that that really made this stand out for me was, they have studied how NIH works, studied it hard and learned it well. And they have put sand in the gears in ways that are very effective and devastating. And I feel like that just kind of brought it all together for me, where I was like, this is how I've been feeling for the last 9 months. But it was really interesting and somewhat validating, I think, to have somebody who actually really is an expert in this say that. I just wonder how you, brought that up with people.
I mean, I think that there's a tendency to sort of see this as as I put it in the story, as collateral damage, right? That there's a kind of a war on government waste, and the pushback against the liberal universities, specifically with the kind of anti-Semitism, and that you can kind of see this through one lens as, well, this is just kind of collateral damage. This is just fallout, but when you look a little more closely, you see that, this isn't so easy to do. The NIH and NCI, as you guys know better than anyone, are designed to be apolitical institutions. They are designed to be insulated from political attack. So in order to kind of undermine them, to really have this kind of to do this kind of damage to their agenda, takes some work and takes some forethought. And I think you see that when you start to look at how all of this unfolded, beginning just days after the inauguration, that it was a deliberate strategy. And so you kind of have to see it that way. And people who were working there certainly saw it that way. I felt in some ways part of my job was to kind of reframe this a little bit for people to see this as something more than collateral damage. This is clearly something more than that. And I think that, if you want to look at this kind of from a more generous point of view, you can say, okay, you mentioned, shifting of priorities. So, okay, they feel that this biomedical research system needs to be reformed, but, show us the reform, because all I see here is defunding and dismantling. So, yeah.
Yeah, we saw exactly what you saw. And like any great story, it ends with a question. And in this case, the question is Harold Varmus's, which is, why would we want to destroy one of our greatest assets? And he's absolutely right. Why are they doing this? Why did they do it? I agree that this is deliberate.
Yeah. I mean, I really don't have a great answer to that question. I mean, after spending months researching this, I think that, there are just the easiest explanations would be, that government waste would be, this was a way to get at the liberal elite research institutions, and kind of payback, for COVID, payback against the scientific establishment. So those are the kind of, just on the surface, those seem to be the three kind of most obvious explanations. But none of them quite explains why you would take something that's been so successful. And, again, and I tried to go out of my way in this piece to make it clear that I'm not suggesting that this is a system that wouldn't benefit from some reform, but we're not seeing anything other than defunding and destruction and dismantling at this point. So I don't know. I think that I guess you could take the sort of the Silicon Valley, the tech right perspective on this, which is we need to disrupt this system. We need to give more power to private companies and take take power away from the government. And private companies will be more willing to take risks. Why have we not cured cancer yet? I guess you can look at it from that through that lens, but the problem there is that we're not seeing any new programs unless I'm missing them. But I have not seen anything new. I've just seen I've only seen subtraction here. So
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I was just wondering, and this is, not my field, so I'm really just asking out of curiosity here. But I imagine that a lot of this is also happening outside of oncology. Well, I know a lot of it is happening outside of oncology, and I'm assuming that most of it is. And I'm just wondering, well, one, I guess, why did you choose oncology specifically to cover? And two, I guess I am curious about, details about the other side of things. I know Alzheimer's research was a big thing, vaccines, all of it kind of has touch points to oncology, but
Yeah. I mean, I guess I felt like, and I wasn't quite sure when I started doing, I started in on the story. I wasn't quite sure I was going to zero in on oncology and on cancer. But I sort of felt like, to try to tell the whole biomedical research story, it would just be a little too sprawling. And already cancer is such a huge, this is such a sprawling institution, or such a sprawling ecosystem to begin with, that it was going to be hard enough just to deal with that. So it really was more a decision that was, just kind of narratively, I felt like it would be impossible to do anything more than kind of one specific field. And it did feel like, because of the way that the war on cancer has unfolded over the decades, it seemed to be such a great and powerful illustration of how this works. I mean, how you need to do this basic biological investigation, how it takes years and years and years for all of that investigation and research to begin to accrue and to begin to lead to real progress. And this idea that we are, just now and over the course of the last couple of decades, been able to make great breakthroughs, and we are poised for more, that it took so many decades to get here. And that just at this moment, I mean, as I quote Ned Sharpless in this piece, saying that we are, kind of at maybe the most kind of fertile period of cancer research in history, that it just gives it this, it just seems so, makes it all more tragic. So, but I felt that the story of the war on cancer was such a powerful illustration of how biomedical research has to work, and the patience that it requires, and just the recognition that it is incremental. It has to be incremental,
especially the basic research. I think commercialization, you can probably some of it can go somewhere else, and and the questions that are asked, all of that is really important. But it's also, let's just not forget, this is a national idea of who we are as Americans. Because in 1971, America became the first country ever to declare war on disease. Yeah. And if this is canceled, I think everybody should pay attention. And that's my question. I hate to be one of those guys who ask a really long question, but I will nonetheless. Congress has not gone along with this so far, probably won't. And it hasn't in the past. Yeah. Do you think there's hope out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, certainly that's the question, right? Is how much is Congress going to, certainly historically it has not, it has pushed back. I mean, I think, there is hope that it will push back again. But, I think there will also probably be compromises, right? I mean, I think that, will Trump get this, 38% cut to cancer research? Maybe not, but will it stay the same, or will it will there be some kind of small cut? Perhaps. I mean, I don't know. And then there's the question of indirect rates, which I think that's certainly we're certainly looking at some kind of cut there. I think I'd be very surprised if we don't see something some kind of cut there. And then, and then we're talking about a whole change in how the grant making process, it does seem clear that there is a sort of consolidation of power around the grant making process, a politicization of the grant making process. That seems to be happening given how many kind of new political appointees there are now at NIH. So I think, is this going to is Trump going to be able to get everything he wants here? And everything he's proposing? I mean, quite possibly not, but I think it's pretty clear that a lot of damage has already been done, and that, there are going to be pretty big changes.
Yeah. And I think you illustrated this really amazingly in your article with Dr. Sirianni, how even if, the budget is flat from last year, let's say it's best case scenario, we get some kind of raise, indirect costs stay as they were. The damage that has been done, like you said, is disruptive. Like it will take time to get that back. Projects have been lost, projects have fallen through the cracks. And so even absolute best case scenario, there has been serious trouble brought to this field. And I think that's...
Yeah. And I think people are, scientists and young scientists in particular why would you want to go into this field in the United States right now? It just feels so unstable and, chaotic, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
How did you decide on UMass and Dr. Sirianni?
Yeah, I was really, I talked to a lot of different people and a lot of different researchers. And, again, I thought her story, someone who was just, by chance happened to have all of her NIH grants kind of coming up in 2025 and 2026. And the fact that she specialized in pediatric brain cancer, and in a particular type of, medulloblastoma, a particular type of cancer that is, very aggressive and relatively rare. So you feel like it's a particular, it's something that, that no VC is going to want to spend money investigating. It's something and yet it's something that is, devastating for children, and something that we as a country should be prioritizing. And also the fact that her research could have implications for so many other, fields beyond cancer, as just her research could change how, could potentially change how other neurodegenerative diseases are treated. It felt like it kind of encapsulated a lot of the story as well. And she had to, the very fact that she had to shut a study down. I mean, it just seemed crazy to me that someone who's an NIH funded scientist who's had great success so far, and seems to be making great progress, just is being disrupted. Felt just so kind of illustrative of kind of what this moment.
There's a quote from her as well in the story that says, "When you remove me from the ecosystem, you're removing something that can't be replaced." Exactly what you just said. Yeah. But please go ahead.
Yeah. And then what made me kind of more inclined to want to use her as my kind of main research character was that when I spoke to the chancellor there, Dr. Collins, he was very cooperative. So, not all these kind of medical school chancellors would be willing to really kind of walk me through everything they've been through. They're all understandably nervous. But he was very open about all the chaos and uncertainty, and the fact that he had to rescind offers to basically the entire class of PhDs. The fact that he had to lay off 200 people. I mean, he kind of walked me through everything and told me how basically the money stopped appearing and the grant money stopped showing up. I mean, he kind of had no other choice. So I kind of, the fact that I kind of had her and then I had him, I felt like it was we, in this kind of magazine world, you're always kind of trying to, find the people who will help you tell the story. And they seemed like good candidates. I also like the fact that it was not Harvard, that it was not Columbia, that it was not a school that it was not on the administration's radar at all. I mean, and yet, here they are, and it's a state university. They don't have, they don't have a massive endowment. They don't have a hospital that's throwing off tons of revenues. They're sort of doing the best they can. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting, because as we cover this, I'm trying not to fall into this trap of saying, "Oh well, that's just DEI, just a little flesh wound,"
Yeah.
and oh, that's just it's and it's very. At what point do you kind of draw the line and say none of it is okay?
Yeah.
It's not to be expected. So it comes down to, but let's talk about your mom. What happened there?
Yeah. So, I mean, this just was just very coincidental that, my mom died of lung cancer years ago. And just last summer, I had a respiratory infection that wasn't going away. So I went to see the pulmonologist who treated her. And just because he was a guy, but my father was a physician, and they were friendly. So I'd known him. I mean, I hadn't talked to him really since my mom died, but I needed a pulmonologist, so he was the logical guy to call. And when I went to see him, he just mentioned offhand, it's too bad your mother isn't sick now, because I would have had a lot more tools to treat her with. And I just, I kind of clocked it at the time. We talked about it a little bit, but not much. And then when I started working on the story, I thought, I should give Dr. Libby a call, because that was kind of an interesting comment he made, and I'd be curious to hear more. And so I called him, and we talked for a while, and he, explained everything that he would be doing with her today that he was unable to do with her in 2008 and 2007, 2008. And he felt that, first of all, my mom, she had lung cancer, and it was by the time she was diagnosed, it was too late for radiation. It was too late for surgery. She just did this really toxic course of chemotherapy, and I remember I would take her to some of her chemotherapy appointments, and then afterwards she would just be just for days she would just be a wreck. She couldn't eat. She couldn't really, she barely got out of bed. And he said he would have used immunotherapy. He would not have used chemotherapy at all. And her quality of life during her treatment would have been much better. And that he thought that she would have lived at least another 6 months, maybe another year. So, that's a long time. My mom died basically a year after she was diagnosed. And the thought that, I had I had two small children at the time who are now both in college. And the fact that my mom could have spent 6 more months, maybe another year, seeing her grandchildren, and that her quality of life during that period of time would have been much better. She would have been, able to really spend time with them and enjoy it, was, really says a ton about how this whole system operates. I mean, we're not talking about a lot of this. Is 2008. This is not that long ago. And a lot of progress has been made in those intervening years. I mean, it's kind of incredible. And you think about, well, what does it mean if we start to defund the system? I mean, that's in some ways, there's a kind of amazing paradox here, right? Because we don't even know what what treatments are not going to be discovered, what breakthroughs are not going to happen. But history has shown that this system is incredible, and it has it produces incredible results, and that is a perfect example of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Jacquelyn, do you have any more questions?
I have a final question, but I want to save it for the end. If you have anything else, Paul.
No, this was just a fabulous thing to see, the story. I guess, well, maybe there is a question. When do we start hearing from patients?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I've been getting a lot of emails from people who are, from patients, from loved ones of patients. I mean, and some have been on the Hill, I know, testifying, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think maybe that would be more patients would be helpful for sure. Yeah.
Because we're talking about the single largest constituency probably in the world, arguably.
Yeah.
Certainly in the United States too. So,
Yeah. No, I think that's right. Yeah.
Jack.
I'm just gonna. My question is from a journalist to a journalist, less so about the oncology thing. I'm just curious how long this story took, because it is large, and you said in it that you spoke to at least 50 members of America's biomedical research system. So I'm just curious about
and
that.
some others too. Yeah. I mean, well, Paul, we could see when my first call to you was, because you were pretty early on. June. I was going to say June. Yeah. So June to September. I mean, I guess that's about right. So a few months. Yeah. It was a lot of material. I had 160 pages of notes when I sat down to write.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
But I also, honestly, I had a lot to learn. I mean, I you guys cover this. I do not. So I had to get up to speed. I knew a little bit about cancer because of my mom, honestly, but otherwise, I was totally new to this. And I'd read some, but I had to learn how this whole system operates. And I think a lot of people don't understand how all these pieces fit together. And I guess that was sort of one of the things that as I was writing the story, I kept trying to remind myself was, this is not a science story. This is a story about a system and what this system has done and how this system is being threatened. And that was in many ways, that was like the kind of the biggest challenge of this piece, was to not turn it into a science story, because there's a lot of science here.
Yeah, you could go down a lot of rabbit holes, a lot of fun rabbit holes.
And you get caught up in it. Science is exciting and really interesting when you start to talk about it, but it was like, that's a really different story. Yeah,
you're preaching to the choir here with that. That's like my whole life at the Cancer Letter is like, cool science. No, that's wonderful. That's really wonderful. Well, thank you so much. We're so happy to see that there is this coverage of this really important thing. And I like you said, I'm so grateful that, a more lay audience, a more general audience is going to see sort of behind the curtain and see that how this actually works. Because even like not like a PhD or anything, but I did biological cancer research before this. And even like trainees, junior level researchers are not aware of this, speaking from personal experience, at least, not speaking for everyone.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a big thing to have, more people exposed to how progress actually gets done, gets made. Great. So it was wonderful.
Well, thank you guys too, because I will say the Cancer Letter was like, especially in the first 6 weeks or so of my research, I went through literally, I read all of your back to the inauguration. So
that's awesome. It's so funny you said that you had a lot to learn. I felt like a water hose, drinking from a water hose, just trying to keep up with it as it was happening. So imagine doing that in a compressed period. I applaud you.
As Paul knows from I'm sure my first interview with him, I was like, can you explain how this whole thing works to me?
Awesome.
But it's really the fun part of the job. Yeah.
That is what he does. He did it for me too.
Well, thank you guys so much.
All right. Thank you.